Hey guys, so I know I've been kind of absent from YouTube for the past couple weeks. I'm finally getting back into the flow of things. I don't have enough books that I'm reading to actually keep up with the reviews once a month. I'll still post them whenever I do read a book. I'll basically still post the reviews once a month. And I don't know if I'm going to keep up with the readings every Friday or not. If I do keep up with it, I'm going to make it more simple on myself because adding pictures every time we have a scene cut makes my life very difficult and it takes too much time. So I'll probably just put one picture and then edit the audio for you guys real quick. With that being said, Thanksgiving was yesterday, and so today I thought we would read a Thanksgiving historical fiction that I wrote. This particular story is kind of framed in the diary and the journal of a man who has lived for 2,000 years. He was born in 209 BC, and due to certain events, he is now alive during the time of the first Thanksgiving in the 1600s. So these are his journal entries as he just kind of goes about his life because he wants to be able to have memories, 1,000 years ago, so to speak. That's kind of why he writes in his journal. This is a book in the Valiant series. It's called Immortal. Immortal is a prequel to the Valiant series, but there's so much content to Immortal that I actually kind of skipped about 1,500 years of history or so. And so I wrote this other book called Immortal: The Lost Journals as a companion, and I'm not finished with it yet. But in Immortal: The Lost Journals, this is where I have the first Thanksgiving included from Jace's journal's perspective. So I really hope that you enjoy this video. Let's get right into it. October 1621. I have returned to Plymouth. As soon as I arrived, I stayed with the Paconoids in their village. The crops are ready to be harvested, and many of the natives have come to Plymouth to help. William, Edward, and the other settlers here are most grateful for the natives' help. As soon as we finish harvesting the crops, there will be a feast. I should stay in the wilderness, away from everyone, with Turok so close, but the fellowship and companionship is one I miss and crave and have for as long as I can. Knowing where my future seems to be going, I have little doubt that I will spend many months or even years alone. Why not enjoy friendship while I have it? Magoichi would be very proud. October 1621. The past several days have been spent harvesting all our crops. This year we have plenty of corn and squash, and so far there seems to be plenty to start us off in the winter. Last winter they had it rough here. William tells me they started off with 102 settlers and over half of them died last year. The winters of this land are cold and cruel, and I dread them each and every year. Megan, Squanto, and I will join some of the native warriors tomorrow on a hunt for deer meat to add to the feast. October 1621. The hunts went well. We caught a total of 5 deer and a few rabbits in the traps I set. Edward asked me to show him how to set the trap up, and I agreed. Plymouth has bloomed since they first arrived. Now there are a total of 11 buildings, 7 are houses, and 4 are common buildings. Massasoit and several dozen of his people joined us for the feast, including Squanto and Mingan. To see smiles on their faces again brought joy to my heart. We sat outside on cloths made from the tanned hide, eating our fill. The Puritans all prayed, and I joined them, thanking God for this bountiful harvest and for getting them through difficult days. Squanto even joined us in the prayer. Henrietta and Arinda began to sing and dance, and though there was no music, many others joined in. Arinda asked if I would join them, but I politely declined. Where I leaned against one of the buildings, I was more than content to watch. Instead, Moon and Night both yipped and jumped around Orianda as she danced between them. Night yapped again and bent down on his 2 front hunches, begging for her to play. After a while, the dancing and singing stopped, but a group of boys began to throw a ball back and forth. It was thrown my way, so I stood and hurled it back and a game began. None of us really knew what we were doing, but we continued throwing the ball back and forth, chasing each other to our heart's content. We collapsed onto the grass, breathing heavily, munching on food during breaks before beginning the game again. My eyes are heavy, but for once it is a good thing. Today has been filled with much light and laughter that I find so refreshing. I, like everyone here, am so grateful to God for the many blessings He has provided. Even now I hear my name being called from outside my tent. I have chosen not to stay in one of the buildings in Plymouth to impose on anyone, so I stay inside of a tent of my own, as I always do. They call my name and I hear singing beginning again, even at this late hour. So much for sleep, but now it isn't sleep that matters. Late October 1621. The feast continued for 3 days. We ate and laughed and danced and spoke, with Squanto and I translating between the Pakanoids and the settlers. We hunted a bit more, and I showed Edward and William how to set traps. We prayed and worshipped God and played more games than yesterday. Even the native children got involved. It showed that peace can exist between our two peoples, and it feels as if this is a start to a new hope and a bright future ahead.
So that was the entries from the first Thanksgiving. I hope that you really enjoyed that. Because that made the video so short, because it was very condensed. His journal is, I tried to make it realistic in the sense that what would he write and how much would he write and how many details would he include and stuff like that. So some entries are longer than others. And so it's not like a narrative story where I tell every detail and everything that happens. And that's something that we have to remember about Immortal and Immortal: The Lost Journals. But because the video was so short, I thought I would continue reading a little bit past the first Thanksgiving entries into the rest of that year. Right now we were in October of 1621, so I'm going to go on and continue reading a little bit. This will contain a few spoilers. They're kind of like minor. It's more just like getting to know Jace's history, and there's so much to it, nothing's really that spoiled, if you will. And another thing to remember that I think is a kind of a random fun fact in the middle of all this, please ignore my dog whining. He hates storms, so that's why he's whining right now. But anyways, another thing that I think is actually cool is sometimes the way that we remember history or the way that we're taught history is not actually what happens. And when I deep dive for Immortal and Immortal: The Lost Journals, I learn a lot about history because it's just so interesting. Like, I have to do the research. And about the first Thanksgiving, what they don't tell you is that there's actually a lot of war and fighting that happens after the whole peaceful harvest. That peace does not last. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to get into a little bit of that as we keep reading. So enjoy, guys.
November 1621. Another ship has arrived in Plymouth. It weighs anchor offshore of it. Thus far, I know nothing of its arrival, and my only hope is that it is not Cataro or Veritas. I am not close to ready yet. Squanto, Mingan, and the rest of the natives return to their tribe. Though I plan to visit them soon, I have chosen to stay in Plymouth to keep a wary, cautious eye out for Cataro and his men. When they arrive, I have no idea how I will react, but for now I need Turok to still believe our deal. I have to keep up the guise until next year when I leave for England. Hopefully then I can help Kiritrex travel to the New World, where we can be ready for whatever Veritas and Turok have planned. Early December 1621. There has been a lot of fighting as of late, and since then I have been too busy to write, falling exhausted into my tent each night straight to sleep. Cataro and Veritas soldiers were not on the ship when it arrived. It brought 30 people, only 5 of which were peaceful Puritans like William and the rest of the settlers here in Plymouth. Most of these men were soldiers from Europe, veterans of the 30 Years' War from what I hear. The captain works for a man named Thomas. William tells me Thomas is the man who sponsored them. They owe a great deal of money for the Mayflower, the ship that brought them here, and when it returned earlier this year, it brought nothing with them. William explained that after the loss of half their people this winter, they had no provisions or goods to bring back to England from the New World. Thomas is highly disappointed of them and expectant. The captain expressed this daily, and it worries William. For weeks I went out hunting for beavers. The pelts aren't worth much in consideration with what debt the settlers at Plymouth owe, but it is a start. Mingan and Squanto helped me, and we brought back as many pelts as we could. In the meantime, William, Edward, and the other men at Plymouth chopped down as much lumber as possible. We spent days loading the ship, and yesterday, 4 weeks after its arrival, the ship sailed off to return to England. This evening after we ate supper, William told me that it wouldn't be enough to pay their debts, and with no gold in the New World, he had no idea how they will pay Thomas off. They didn't come here for gold or riches, but they must make a profit somehow. If I didn't have Veritas and Turok to worry about, I would make a journey south to hunt beaver pelts. 1 year would be enough to help them, and I would continue doing it as long as it took to help pay off their debts. But whatever Turok and Veritas are doing here in the New World is not good, and with events surrounding them being so quiet as of late, I am worried. The quieter it is, the more my worries grow. What's worse is that now there are 30 more mouths to feed at Plymouth as winter approaches. I will politely stop attending meals and find my own way for food, so as to save it for them, but winter is always harsh here, and I worry for their well-being. Late December 1621. Massasoit became gravely ill. I spent my days in the village with him, but Squanto went to Plymouth and fetched William and a few others. With their medicine, even as limited as it is, Massasoit was able to make a full recovery. To show his gratitude, he told William that he had heard tales of a plan from other native tribes in the area. His spies from the Narragansetts confirmed that they had gathered for a big tribal council and planned to attack a trading post north of here. They wait, afraid of what you will do to them in return, Massasoit explained in English. He switched to the language of the Paconoids. All their tribes will gather together in a big war party to take down both villages. William watched and waited for me to translate. He says that the Narragansetts plan to form a coalition to attack Plymouth and the northern post at once. William and I traveled all night to return to Plymouth, and I have just come from a city meeting among the men. If the Narragansetts attack us, we are too weak and Plymouth will fall. Henrietta and Arienda, will Turok interfere and save her life, or will the new life he promised she would have end just as shortly? What about the other women and children here? Many of the men here wish to travel to the northern post to speak with the soldiers there. Many of the 30 years war veterans moved there. Coexisting with the Puritans hadn't been working out well. Tomorrow I will set out with them. For now, I need rest. January 1622. The one thing I have learned in all my years of living is that humans can never resist war. Peace is too easy, perhaps. Perhaps there is an evil, a desire for bloodlust inside all of us. I thought the Puritans were different, but it turns out they are just like everyone else. Europeans, Romans, Greeks, it matters not. When the Puritans from Plymouth and I traveled to meet the veterans at the northern trading post, we met and they came up with a plan. They would invite the natives here under the guise of trade and then kill the leaders. When the natives arrived, there were about a dozen men. From what I picked up based on their dialect, 3 of them were important leaders, but several of them were the most trusted warriors. One of those warriors was just a boy, no older than 16 or 17 perhaps. The veterans and Puritans slaughtered them all. I gave the boy a chance to run, but he was shot in the back on his way out of the trading post. One of the veterans attacked me and held a pistol to my head. "You're a sympathizer with these savages," he screamed. "Half-breed! Put down your weapon, man." William Bradford sprinted toward us as the rest of the men gathered around us in a circle. I pressed my head against his rifle. "Do it. This is their land. They lived here first. If you call that sympathizing, then so be it." He cocked it. "He is one of us," William insisted. "Lower your weapon." Slowly, the man lowered his pistol, but he spat on me. I clenched my fists but held my tongue. When William and I looked over, the other veterans had chopped off one of the dead natives' heads. He held it up for all to see. Everyone in the camp cheered, even William. These natives would have killed us. Of that, I have no doubt. But to treat them so cruelly, it didn't sit right with me. Still, I returned to Plymouth with William, and I had intended to stay. It was not until he and the other men set the native leader's head on a spike and hung it in the center of Plymouth that my stomach churned. "Where are you going, Nicholas?" William asked me. I stood in front of the gates with my pack and weapons in hand, ready to leave. "I can no longer condone these actions, William. We must survive, but not this way." "This is not what the Lord wants," I shouted at him. William shook his head and then placed a hand upon my shoulder. "Nicholas, I know we are friends with some of them, but think about it for a moment. Upon our arrival on this shore, this tribe here had been wiped out with plague. God wiped them out to clear the way for us." "No, that isn't how God works, William. I can stay in Plymouth no longer." With that, I ripped my shoulder out of my friend's grasp and left Plymouth forever. I returned to the Paconoids, who welcomed me with open arms. Last night, Mangan asked me what had happened, and I finally mustered the courage to tell him. When I finished the story, he sat and stared at the ground. "William believes your God killed my people to make a path for them?" Mangan's eyes filled with tears, and I knew he thought of his family. "Their beliefs are misguided. God uses evil to his good and purpose, but never causes it," I explained, or tried to. Our conversation reminded me that, had Peter or Paul been here, they would have been preaching the gospel to anyone they could. It only reminded me of how badly I had failed Jesus, how badly I had failed God.
I know that last bit was a little bit more gruesome, but every event that happened in that situation actually was true historical fact. I was actually doing some research to find out where I was going to go with the plot line after the first Thanksgiving, and come to find out that the Narragansetts actually were planning to attack a post north of Plymouth, so William Bradford and some of the other settlers traveled to meet with other people. A lot of the trouble stirred whenever veterans from the 30 Years' War actually came over, and they were a lot more violent than the Plymouth people, and I don't think they were religious, so they had a lot of religious fighting. But anyway, so they all got together, went to the northern post, And they heard rumors that the natives were going to attack that northern post. So what they did was they invited the natives there under guise of trade. And then they betrayed them all, killed them, they cut the leader's head off, and then they brought his head back to Plymouth and hung it in the center of Plymouth, and everybody was like really joyful and happy. And there were accounts that said that they cheered over it. And so when I did this, I knew that Jace would have issues with this, and it would not sit well with him. And because he's been a friend of the natives for, since he arrived here in Jamestown, early 1600. And so that brought in a lot of conflicting feelings with him, and the people at Plymouth believed that God had wiped out the natives with the plague before they arrived here to prepare the way for their arrival. And so I felt like I needed to show the conflict of beliefs there with what William Bradford and the Plymouth people believed, which is conflict, versus what Jace believed about God, and trying to kind of wrap their minds around these deep issues. And reality is, like, we cannot know the mind of God. He is too infinite for us to understand. He is too infinite for us to understand him. But the thing is that he uses evil for his good, but his plans are always good, and he himself cannot cause bad. So trying to kind of have the characters rationale that. It's a very, very deep issue, but it's one that I needed to get into. And it's not the only one in Immortal, The Lost Journals, or Immortal. There's a lot of deep issues that go throughout this. So I really hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you're intrigued. If you are, I'll keep you guys updated about Immortal. It's probably not going to be years and years and years from now, but I will keep you guys updated about my progress as I write Immortal, The Lost Journals. If you guys enjoyed this, be sure to like this video, share it around with your friends if you think that they'll like it. Anybody who loves historical fiction, this is definitely the book for them. And be sure to subscribe for more writing advice and reading videos. Thank you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed this.